You've seen this happen before, I'm sure of it. You have a team member who was once totally on fire, full of ideas, always going the extra mile, and then they just slowly start to fade. The passion cools off, they don't contribute as much, and it's like they've just checked out. It is one of the most frustrating things to watch, and it turns out there's a hidden system that explains exactly why it happens.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it. The real danger isn't the noise from people complaining. It's the silence that comes after. It's when the people who used to care so much just stop. And that silence, it's a huge red flag. It's a symptom of something much, much deeper. A problem not with the person, but with the entire system they're stuck in.
Now, look, it's really easy to point fingers or look for some quick fix, but that's not what we're here to do. Instead, we're going to pull back the curtain and really understand the mechanics behind this. Because this shift from passion to just passivity, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is a completely logical response to a system, and today we're going to map that system out.
So where do we usually start when this happens? Well, our first instinct is almost always to see it as a people problem. We look at the individual and we think, what changed with them? We call it a bad attitude, or maybe they just got lazy. And yeah, it's the simplest explanation, but it's almost never the whole story.
This right here shows the massive disconnect between how things look on the outside versus what's really going on. From the outside, the organization sees laziness, but from inside the employee's head, it's just a rational response to their environment. Where management calls a bad attitude is actually a very calculated decision to stop wasting their energy. And entitlement, a lot of the time, that's just a shield, a defense against taking risks in a place that feels unsafe. And that brings us to the core of this whole thing, a hidden, often subconscious calculation that every single employee is making all the time. This isn't about their salary. It's about what we call discretionary effort. That extra spark, that extra bit of creativity they can choose to give, or, more importantly, choose to withhold. So here's how that calculation actually plays out. An employee thinks about suggesting a new idea, or maybe staying a little late to finish something. Instantly, their brain runs this quick risk-reward analysis. On the risk side, you've got things like, if this goes wrong, I'm going to get the blame, or this might cause some friction with my team, and I'm not even getting paid for these extra hours. Then on the reward side, will anyone even notice? Will this actually make a difference? Is there any chance this helps me get promoted? The choice to either go for it or just do the bare minimum is the logical result of that mental math.
So what's the one thing that can completely change this entire calculation? Well, it all comes down to this: psychological safety. This is the absolute bedrock of engagement. If you believe that you can speak up, throw out an idea, ask a question, or even admit a mistake without being punished or humiliated for it, the perceived risk just plummets. But without it, the risk is almost always going to feel bigger than any potential reward.
And here's where it gets really, really interesting. This little calculation, it doesn't just stay in one person's head, it spreads. It creates this ripple effect, almost like a contagion of caution that can completely reshape an entire team's culture.
Just think about it for a second. When one person, especially someone who's respected, stops taking risks and pulls back, it's not a private act, it's a public signal. Their behavior is a live demonstration to everyone else about the safest, most logical way to behave in that environment.
And soon enough, that question starts echoing in everyone else's mind. They see their coworker playing it safe, avoiding any blame, and still getting their paycheck. The logic is hard to argue with, right? All of a sudden, being cautious doesn't look like being lazy anymore. It looks like the smartest way to survive.
And this is the most critical part. The team's entire standard for what good enough looks like gets silently renegotiated, downwards. There's no meeting, no memo. It's just a collective, unspoken agreement. The new baseline becomes the lowest common denominator of risk. And anyone still trying to go above and beyond? Well, they're subtly pressured to stop, because now their extra effort just makes everyone else look bad.
This brings us to what you could call the system's immune response. It explains why so many well-intentioned fixes, things like team-building events or those annual engagement surveys, why they so often just fall completely flat. It's because they're treating the symptom, which is the low effort, without ever touching the actual disease, the system that's causing.
This table just captures the disconnect perfectly. Take a look at that first one. Leadership says, we want your feedback. But the employee's internal calculation based on experience is, yeah, right, speaking up has gotten people in trouble before. So what happens? Silence. Or the next one, a big call to be more innovative.
But everyone remembers that the last person whose project failed got totally sidelined. The outcome? Even more risk aversion. These fixes always fail because they don't change the underlying math.
So here's the big shift in perspective we have to make. The system that creates these disengaged employees, it isn't actually broken. In fact, it's working perfectly. It has been perfectly optimized, whether intentionally or not, to produce a very specific result, predictable, low-risk behavior. And if that means sacrificing passion and innovation to get there, so be it.
And that leaves us with this final, really challenging idea. The employee who stops trying isn't lazy. They're not broken. They are a perfectly adapted organism, responding in the most logical way possible to the environment they're in. Their disengagement isn't a failure of character, it's proof that they've learned the rules of the game perfectly. And so the real question isn't, how do we fix this employee? It's how do we fix the system that's teaching them to quit?